Hi, I'm Barbara O'Brien. I'm an animal trainer and photographer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Empathetic Trainer. Hi, this is Barbara O'Brien, and you're listening to the Empathetic Trainer Podcast. Have we got an amazing guest for you today? Chris Lombard is with us, and he's an interesting, very exciting, brand new voice, it seems to me anyway, in the horse world about being a better connection, better attunement, better understanding for horses and making their lives better. So, Chris Lombard is a horse trainer and author. He's written 2 books, Land of the Horses, a true story of a lost soul and a life found, and Horses in Our Stars, a story of life, love, and the journey within. Chris believes that there is joy, challenge, and much opportunity for growth when learning alongside a horse. A truer statement couldn't have been made, Chris. Boy, I've had horses for 40 some years. I've been riding, since I was 12. And boy, lots of growing pains, lots of learning. And then now within the last 3 or 4 years, an incredible journey. So we certainly want to hear about yours. And from what I understand, from looking at what's out there about you, you didn't even grow up with horses. You started later in life, which probably gave you a completely different perspective and a fresh, brand new way of looking at them. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, Barbara. Would love to. Yeah, thank you for having me here on the Empathetic Trainer Podcast. I'm really excited about this and to talk a little bit about how I began with horses. I didn't touch a horse until I was 26 years old. I grew up an animal lover, very much in the state of Maine, but cats were my first animal friends. And then while living in the city of Portland, Maine's largest city, when I was 26 years old, I went through a very challenging time in my life. At the time, I was as lost as I'd ever been. And during that time, I happened to go to a farm where my friend was barn sitting. And while I was there, she said, "Well, I have to go feed the horses. Do you want to come with me?" And I thought, oh, sure. Why not? And went out to the barn with her and walked in there, and the 2 horses were eating some hay. And I just got lost in the sound of their eating.
Yeah.
They would reach down and grab a bite to eat and then stare at me while they chomped, just so content in their life. And then all of a sudden I heard my friend go, it's ready. I'm ready to go back to the house. You coming? And I just kind of woke up and I didn't realize if I was standing there for an hour or for 10 seconds. Time seemed to fade away there. And in that moment, I realized that I felt just as content as those horses were, even though, I supposedly had all these challenges and things I was going through in life. But while I was around those horses, they seemed to embody a contentment, a freedom, a peace. No matter what the past was, no matter what the future may or may not be, there was some sort of contentment in the moment that they had going on that they kind of ignited within me just in their presence.
Oh.
And so I walked back to the house with my friend, and then in the days after that, the weeks, I'd have a vision of those 2 horses. I'd be laying in bed staring up at the ceiling, and suddenly those 2 horses would pop into my mind. And I said, "Chris, what are you doing? You felt this amazing contentment right there. You have to follow it. And looking back at it now, it was such an innocent time in my life because I had no attachments to it whatsoever, Barbara. I had no thoughts of where it would lead or what it would get me or anything else. I just thought I would like to be around horses. And so for the next couple months, I took sort of the standard riding lesson and had great fun. And the same thing happened. The moment I walked into that barn and started to interact with the horses and just be around them, whether it be just standing with them or standing with them in the field or grooming or tacking them up, I felt that same contentment. And then pretty soon after that, within a couple months of those riding lessons, I realized I had what I thought, these things that had happened in my life that I thought were somewhat devastating. I started to see the flip side and the opportunity that they were leading me into. And I packed everything I could into my car that I really needed. And I decided to just drive out west with the idea that I would find interaction and connection and work with horses somehow.
Now
No
that
idea
sounds great. You
where
have
it
to
was going to
understand, like
be,
to the average person, that sounds like what? I mean, how do you
right?
just, hey, mom, dad, friends, I'm going to go be a horse guy, and it'd be like saying I'm going to start riding motorcycles, and I've never been in one in my life. You know what I mean? It's different, but
Yeah,
a very scary thought for the people around you.
yeah.
And then 26. My son is 26, and him like
Huh.
it'd be hard pressed. Like, what? You're going to just go what? So. Um, Although I guess I would understand. So I'm trying to, like, what made you so brave, and what made you know that this is something you had to do?
Oh, it's heart. It's where your heart leads, and your heart will have patience with you.
Mm,
Your heart will wait until you're ready, but it certainly won't hide. It'll stay ever present there. And the more you learn to slow down and connect to it, the more you learn to hear it, the more courage is born right along with that. I believe the appropriate courage to follow it, and however many baby steps. I don't think that your heart will set you up with too much to make happen. It'll give you just the right steps. And so I took those 2 years. I drove out west. I ended up staying out there for 2 years and living in 3 states: Colorado, California, Arizona,
hmm.
working on 3 different horse ranches there.
Wow.
First as an apprentice trainer, and then as a wrangler on a dude ranch, and then as a cowboy at the last ranch. And then came back home in 2003 without knowing what I was going to do. I just
Sure.
thought I still wanted to be around horses. And I put out an ad on a message board on the internet saying, if you need help with your horse, maybe I can help you. And that led to 4 clients in the summer of 2003. And that's the only advertising I've done to this point. Those 4 clients led to what I'm doing now,
Wow.
over 20 years later.
Well, I understand that when you're good, and you're doing the right things, like, be a success first, and the money will follow. You were just doing
Mm,
your best
mm.
at being good at what you do, and offering what you have to offer, and not getting hung up on, I have to be at this goal or that goal or make this much money. You're following your heart, like you said, and
Yeah.
the heart's usually not about making tons of money.
Mm.
It's just
Well said.
usually not compatible. So, obviously it's a service. An interesting thought comes to me, because some of us are born, whether we know it or not, born with this innate love of horses. Like,
Mm.
every so many gals and women, especially, of course men too, but like I didn't get exposed to horses either until I was like 12, right? So, but I knew it. You just
Mm.
know you have to be around them. You have to read all the horse books. You have to beg rides when you go to the county fair. Can I please sit on your horse? This desperation, this pretending to be a horse, putting reins on your bicycle so you can ride, no-handed and just direct with the reins, and pretend to feed it hay and whatever, and all your Breyer horse statues. And then, like, your family looks at you like you're an oddity, like, because they weren't horse people. And where did this come from that you knew? So as a child, maybe when we get connected to a horse some way, we don't analyze it like an adult can. Like, it hit you as an
Oh,
amazing thing, right? Like, whoa, a wave. Whereas a little child, it's not articulated that much. It's like, I have to be with them, and I'm not who I am without them. And then the
yeah.
the great blessing of being able to start to ride when I was 12, and do all that until I was 19, and eloped so I could have a horse. Still have the same husband, still have the same horses, 40
All
some
right.
years later. Well, not the same horses, still have horses. So it's like some of us aren't even aware of it, but you, like, really weren't aware of it. I mean, to not have any exposure. You live in a city, you're not connected to nature in the way a rural person might be, or somebody who has access as much, maybe. And to come across these animals and have that adult awareness, that must have been phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll often think about that. It's just the wondrous journey that life is, and what we can understand, and what we can connect to, and what we might not even be able to understand, and the great unknown of it. And I often feel like, the things in my life that my heart, has kind of drawn me to do, and the journeys and everything along with it. It always feels like coming home.
Mm-hmm.
It always feels like coming home. It feels like a place you already knew, even though you might just begin doing it. I often equate it to just that old term of, when somebody says, "Oh, that makes sense." I always think that's an interesting term when we say that makes sense. When
Mm-hmm.
we're learning something and we're learning it, And then finally we go, oh, I got it. That makes sense now. It's like we're remembering something rather than learning something. It's like we already knew it. We just had to have it be awakened within us somehow. And so
Oh,
I've
wow.
always
That's
thought
really
life
cool.
is, yeah, it's a beautiful journey of almost just remembering, awakening, getting back to something that's already inside us rather than becoming something new or learning something new or getting somewhere as we've never been before.
Hmm.
These great places, these great journeys, and where they take us seems to be a place that we knew all along. And I
Ah,
think you touched
that's
upon
really,
something really beautiful. And when we're young, we're not thinking too hard about anything. We're in the moment, very much like horses. We're able to follow
mhm.
our heart and our calling and where we're pulled at any given moment and everything. And so, but then there's that point, where if you demonstrate an interest in something, you are then somewhat beholden to the community and structure around you, friend, family, community, where you live. There's so many things that then really create a design of your experience about what you're drawn to do. With horses, very much being within that realm, with all the different disciplines and styles of riding and teaching methods and just ways of working and being with them. And so, what I've often thought is if I was into horses as a youngster, I would have been brought up under the tutelage and guidance of somebody and possibly the mold of some sort of style of working with horses. And I
Hmm.
feel that might have, I can see how that wasn't my way, Barbara. I can see
Oh,
how that
yeah.
wasn't for me, where I feel like I would have been wanting to be off doing my own thing.
Mhm. Oh,
And so
yeah.
I
No, I get
see
it.
how the universe kind of waited until I was in my 20s. And then the universe said, okay, now here we go. He's Humans don't do well with creating their own change and shift. If things are kind of feeling okay and safe, they kind of want to stay right where they are. So we're going to have to, give him some bumps in the road. We're going to have to give him some challenges. We're going to have to show him that these ways of being no longer serve him. And that's usually a very conflicted, challenging, painful time. And it was, and I look back, I thought my life was kind of falling down around me at age 26, when in reality it was opening up. It was showing me it's time to move on and step into a life, Chris, that trust us, you're going to love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you recently had a post about your horse Rocky that you have lost not too long ago. Um, can certainly every horse person who's had a horse that has really touched their heart, really moved them, really been one that stands out. And I had two of them like that over all these years. That's always so hard. But you said this beautiful thing about it when you were reflecting on where he's buried. You said that Rocky said, "Trust this, Chris. Trust life like you always trusted me." And I thought that was incredibly beautiful. And, because like you said, horses live in the present. And, there's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. I mean, they remember things, but they live in the moment and they can only be what they are in the moment. There's no pretense or falseness about horses. They are what they are. And like the biggest lie in the human language is "I'm fine." When somebody asks you, "How are you?" "I'm fine." I mean, we
Yeah.
won't even acknowledge to each other, what we're feeling, where horses acknowledge it every minute. And when I read that line where he said, "Trust life," and I understand what you mean by the horse talking to you, even from beyond. I mean, I get that. I don't put any limits on what's possible. So trust this, trust life like you always trusted me. That's a real letting go. That's a real bravery.
Thank you for reading those words back to me. That was going straight to my heart there, Barbara. Thank you. It is bravery. That is, I think it's the greatest bravery. I think just living a life in this world is, we are all inherently brave. There's so much unknown. There's so many different things that can be painful in so many
Mm-hmm.
different ways, so many challenges. And so I think just making our way through this life, whether we be animal or human, we're brave. We're brave. And the idea of the unknown that's ahead and the idea that we're all going to pass away at some point, it's enough to bring us together, I think.
Oh,
There's so many infinite differences among all of us, human and animal, between different humans, different animals. I mean, we're all an individual creature with no two of us alike, and we'll never have another another being like us in this world ever again. That simply is amazing. That
It is.
infinite beauty of difference that we all have between us. But then there's also an infinite amount of connection between us, of oneness. And if we look at one of the great onenesses, it can be found just in the living of a life. We're all bound by that oneness of living a life, and that we're all going to pass on at some moment. And so I think that bravery you speak of right there is enough to really be able to see ourselves in another, whether we're looking into a human's eyes or an animal's eyes, and see some sort of great equality,
Absolutely.
that transcends species. Yeah.
I think so because I'm a person of faith, and I believe that we have souls, and they last forever. They're unique to each one of us, and they go on forever. So I believe that, but I also believe animals have souls that are unique and go on forever. And sometimes when you meet a horse, it's like you've always known them, and your soul kind of remembers their soul in a way. I mean, because it just goes on forever. There's an energy there. I also think that when we get so trapped up in modern technology and we're not talking as human beings face to face as much, things like that, we lose our connection with the natural world. And when we're ensconced in a city and it's concrete and it's, whatever the excitement and energy of a city, no wonder people seek out the quiet places. And I wish that opportunity was that everyone has that opportunity. I work I live in rural Wisconsin. I'm about 75 miles from Minneapolis, which is, a good sized city, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we have to go there to do our work, which is animal actors. So we'll bring animals there to the studios and we'll do our work. And that's fine. We'll go in and everybody's great. And the animals are fine because I'm very careful to make sure that it's all about them, that they're super happy and they have a good time. But when we leave and we start heading away from the city, I just feel all that fall away as well. Any kind of, because I get disconnected from the natural world when I'm in a city. I don't like it. I'm just not a city person. To come back to my farm, as soon as we hit the border of Wisconsin, which starts to become rural pretty quick from Minnesota, and you just drive into the driftless area, which is where I live, which means there was no glaciers, so it's all hill. It's like hills and ravines and beautiful small little valleys. There you go. Anyway, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I feel myself just go. And then when I finally get home and I go sit out with my sheep, or I hang out with my chickens, or I go sit with my horses, it's like my church. Everything just melts away and I can connect again. And so I feel for people that don't have that opportunity. I wish that they could just go a little bit further out, walk amongst trees, put their feet on the ground, be grounded again. Animals are our connection to the natural world. And so when someone says, I don't like dogs, I don't like cats, I don't like animals, I don't understand it. Yeah. Have you not met any nice ones? What happened to you? I want to go like not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you that, you don't like some animal, something, So,
yeah, right.
so I get it. I get what you're saying about the whole connected piece of it and how we connect with animals and why it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a clipboard that when I go and do clinics, at the beginning of the clinics, we do a morning circle, and at the end we do an afternoon circle. And many times there's many circles throughout the day. We all just circle up with or without horses whenever there's something kind of meaningful we want to share or talk about. And in the back of that clipboard, written there for years and years, is something I wrote. And every now and then I'll look at it. And what it says is, remember, Chris, you've never seen it not work. And what I'm referring to there is love and connection. Love and connection. I've never seen a human being and an animal, in this case horses most commonly in my work, I've never seen love and connection not possible and not take off between a human and a horse in whatever unique individual way it's happening for them that day. Whether they're standing 50 feet apart or whether they're right beside each other hugging, whether it be a human talking about them from afar, just looking at them, or whether it be them reaching out their hand and touching the nose of a horse for the first time, whether it be somebody learning how to walk and lead a horse for the first time, or whether it be a high-level rider riding around an arena at a high level. I've never not seen love and connection not happen between a human and a horse. And I think the key is having the patience and the ability to set it up in the way that's natural for them and their journey together, and not have
Hmm.
any stories about how it's supposed to be or
Right.
how it should be, as far as somebody who's helping them to kind of find their way to their own unique spark of connection and all
Oh,
of
I,
that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And patience.
Yeah.
Patience is the hardest thing. It's
Yeah.
my biggest fault is being impatient. I know this about myself. It's like everything, I'm a border collie by nature, and I just want to do the job. So that patience is definitely a learned skill, but so gratifying when you just breathe and you let it happen.
Oh,
So I understand that. I have sheep, and a different podcast, we had a gal on that writes books about sheep and stuff, and we talked about how most sheep around most humans, because they're prey animals, are afraid or want to move
yeah.
away, or they're just not
Yeah.
going to interact. But I find that my sheep are super tame because I've raised them from little lambs and they know me, right? But if I go to a different herd of sheep and they're not attuned to me because they don't know me, they definitely
Yeah.
know biblically they say they know their master's voice, and I really do understand the metaphor.
Yeah.
They don't know me, but I find that if I am quiet
Mm.
and patient and just no threat, sit there with no expectation of like, oh, I want to hug all you sheep and I love you. I don't come, I just wait. Eventually, because they're intelligent animals, they're curious, they're going to come around. And you will find that with almost every domestic species for sure. And
Yeah.
even wild animals will check you out. I mean, there'll be a
Yeah.
distance and they'll be safe, but they will, a deer looks at you, and if
Yeah.
you're quiet, he'll look at you longer. And isn't that the
Yeah.
coolest
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
right?
That is.
Right. And I just joined a group on Facebook about crows and how you can make crows your friends because you leave little things for them when they start bringing you gifts. And
Oh,
I,
I've
I
heard about
have
this.
no idea about that. I'm going to have to find a crow
Cool.
person to talk to. But it's like, can you imagine having a relationship with a wild bird that just like brings you little trinkets because you left some peanuts out for him over time? Patience. Right. And so, wow, that's the first thing we teach the little ones when they come visit is we're going to be still and quiet. We're not going to run up to the fence. We're going to have quiet energy, and we're just going to wait. And they're so gratified. The children are so gratified who've never been around horses when a horse approaches.
Oh,
And you just that you're right. That moment of like, wow, and it's not forced, and it's usually there's a fence between us just for safety because horses are so big and I have 7 of them, and but I love seeing that, just the patience. And you're exactly right what you say about distance doesn't matter. The horse
mm,
knows, the human
mm.
knows. Resonate. So I get that. Well, tell us about your clinics. You wrote on a Facebook post recently about a really cool place in Maine that works with people and horses together, and something about how the horses have a lot more freedom than most. And you said it was there was children's artwork all over, great energy. I just was
Yeah.
like, I want to be there so much because children and animals are my thing. And I'm just like, wow, how do they do this? How does this work? So please tell us about that experience and what that was like, because that sounded like a really cool place and what the work is that they're doing there and how you helped with your
Yeah.
clinic.
Yeah. That was the Willow Wind Therapeutic Riding Center in Bar Harbor, Maine. And that was what they're doing there, Barbara, is exactly what you were just speaking about when you were speaking about you know having patience and slowing down and all of that. I took a big deep breath while listening to you there, because I find that's what's the struggle for most of us. I feel the struggle, and where we're coming from a time for many years, hundreds of years really, where human civilization has been all about doing and again getting and achieving and building and protecting and defending and just more. And it came from a very innocent place. It was all about creating safety for ourselves. It was
that, that makes sense.
all about survival, but it really was. It was very hard on the animals and
Yeah.
very hard on the horses because we were using them as machinery. Really, it was all about horses and using them for travel and for work and for war and for pulling and for um, farming, and they had to do a job, and it was all about how well they could get that done. And if they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get it done, then a different horse was found. And people did not have time, because it was about survival. People did not have time to just sit quietly and share space and let the horse take its time and learn in its own way, and, and all of
Mm-hmm.
these things, And so we're still shifting in this world now beautifully, and there's
Yes.
still a lot of friction. There's still a lot of stuff, the change is always a little bit messy, but we are allowing ourselves now the opportunity, as horses are no longer needed for survival in the same ways. And we're able to slow down with them, share space with them, and sit with them, and have simply the relationship and connection be the end in itself. We can still want to do a lot of fun adventures with them, and riding, driving, all these different things, and even competition and so on and so forth. But I think we're learning to let that be guided by the connection, by the
Yes.
relationship.
Yes. That's
We're
really
learning,
what you're saying is everything
yeah,
there.
to let that blossom in its own time, to almost let that come to us, to let the relationship and the connection with the horse be at the heart of what we're doing, and then let what we're going to do be a creation of both us and the horse, and have it, like everything else beautiful in the world, feel like it's offered to us, like it comes
Mm.
to us, and it's an interest of both us and the horse. And so at the clinics, and like at Whirlwind this past weekend, I'm working with people, groups. It's 6 people at the most in
Mm-hmm.
a clinic, 6 people and their horses. And we usually have 4 days that we devote to just ourselves and our horses.
Now
At
that
Whirlwind,
there you
it
go,
was,
right there. 4 days.
yeah, yeah,
That is a commitment for
yeah.
someone to say, I'm going to go do this clinic for 4 days, but that means you understand the patient's part of it. I mean, they have to
Oh,
be
yeah.
committed to the patient's part of it, because horses aren't on the same, they don't look at their watch and go, we've been standing there for 10 minutes. It has to be a sincere, authentic movement. You need patience.
You
It just,
got it. You
wow.
got it right
I mean,
there.
I'm just thinking to myself, how could I commit 4 days? I want to, but it would be like, so these are committed people, which is probably part of the reason that they find it so gratifying in the end, because you can't do this in a half hour.
You got it right there. You said it. The idea of 4 days, when I work with people in a group, I find that the first day, some of them are away from home. A lot of them are just meeting each other for the first time. Some of them might just have a couple months with the horse that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Some have many years. Regardless, we all have our stories. We all have our guards. We all have our walls. All these things we know about, and a lot we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
That we're conscious and unconscious of, and all of that. And so when we go meet up for a clinic, I'm really, what I'm drawn to is to have the work come from the deepest place of love and connection that it can. It's really what has me come alive in my own life, working with horses, and it's what has me come equally alive when I'm working with people and their horses. When I see people connecting in a deep way with their horse, I feel like that is just as much of a gift to me and everybody else present, to be a part of. And so with that said, I find it takes a couple of days. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days to relax, to not only let your own kind of stress down and your own guard down and get comfortable somewhere, but to let the rest of the world ease away. As much as we're trying to relax in our own lives, there's a million things that can really pull us every which way
For sure.
in this world. And so when you go somewhere and you have nothing to do for 4 days but be with your horse and be with other people who are along the same lines and what their journey is and all of that, it is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself and your horse. And just by, I always tell people when they get there, I say, well, the hard work is done. You've got here. And then usually it can go any which way, but I usually find that third day is where horses and humans are just so relaxed with each other and so at peace. And a lot opens up on that day. A lot of really neat and fun
That
things.
is
And then,
so cool. So they're not
yeah,
saying anymore, I'm fine. They're
they're
not,
honest. They're
yeah, they're
honest.
being
And
honest with themselves.
with the idea that there's no difference between any honest answer that you give. A friend of mine once said, he said, yes and no. We tend to think yes is a better answer than no. He goes, but really they both hold equal power. Yes
Mm-hmm.
is no to something else, and no is yes to something else. And they both hold equal power. They're both just the truth. They're both just the truth, and it's what we all want to know. And so if we're not attached to any story about how something has to be, if we've
Wow.
truly let go of the who, what, why, when, where, how, and we
Mm-hmm.
just want to be in truth with another, and we just want to be connected with another, that leaves open every door, every possibility, and connection almost can't not happen. You've put yourself in the moment. If you've let go of the past in the ways that it can direct us, both consciously and subconsciously, and how our mind can be kind of stuck in the past,
Mm-hmm.
wishing it had gone a different way, which means that we think the present moment should be different than it is in some way. If we can let go of that, and if we can let go of the future, the anxieties and worries of the future, hoping that there's some future moment that we think is going to be better than the present moment. Well, see, those feelings in a human, horses don't know what to do with those, because
No, no.
all they know is that there's like two of us, and
Yeah, we're
we're
not
not fully
congruent.
present. We're not
Yeah, we're not
congruent,
matching.
and so
Yeah.
they're automatically kind of ill at ease around us, and that leads to spooking. That leads to disagreeing and other challenges, and just not being safe and feeling at peace in our presence for a lot of horses, unless they've learned to really be able to fill in beautiful ways, like the horses of Willowwind can, as the different people come through there with a lot of energy and emotion. Those horses have learned to hold space and stay steady and fill in, and to share space with those energies, but not take on those energies, which
Yeah.
means those horses are worth their weight in gold as much as any other horse in the world, no matter what
Oh,
their
absolutely.
price. And so at the clinics, when we can get ourselves to that place, a lot of the work is really, there's some clinics where, if we work for, say, if we're there from 9 in the morning till, say, 5 or 6 at night, there's sometimes we're with the horses just a couple hours, because we're sitting in circle and doing other exercises where it's getting ourselves in the right
Mm-hmm.
place. And then when we go to the horses, it's there. They're ready to meet us there and all of that. So I find getting ourselves in the present, feeling ourselves mentally, our thoughts, knowing our thoughts, and knowing ways of thinking, and knowing that we can guide our thoughts, that our thoughts don't run us, but our thoughts are our choice. And also knowing our bodies, knowing how to feel where we are in our relaxation or stress, knowing where to feel where we are in our energy and what it's saying, both in what our body's speaking to us and also how our body's speaking to the world around us, both human and horse. And
Mm-hmm.
then our soul, through our heart and our soul, being able to feel that part of us that is neither mind or body, that you mentioned before, that feels timeless, feels eternal, doesn't feel either young or old, feels like it can be everywhere at once, and feels like it may not know every secret of the universe yet, but boy, it has a feel for them. That part of us there. I find if we
Yeah.
can get in touch with those inside us first, that opens every door in being able to know it and see it and understand it and communicate within it with another. So yeah, that's what I find we focus on in the clinics.
Wow. You
Yeah.
you must come to Wisconsin. We got to work this out.
Yeah, we'd love to. Yeah, we'd love to.
I really want to spend. That would be the coolest thing. Because of course, naturally, when you speak this way, you think about how you can relate with an old personal experience. And
Mm,
this is about you, but I want to just quickly go how I understand what you're saying, because I was injured a couple years ago by a mare that we had taken in an Arabian, and I love Arabians. I have Morgans now, but I love Arabians, and I thought I knew what was going on with attunement and horsemanship and the
mm,
new way of doing things, but I did not have patience and I was not listening. And the mare clearly told me no when I was sitting on her bareback with a halter, and I asked her to move forward. She clearly, with her body language, said no. And I hadn't been on a horse that ever bucked, really, so I didn't know what that warning was when she kind of hunched her shoulders and said no. Looking back, I think it was pain in her back that was
mm,
causing this.
mm,
But she'd had some hard times before us, and who knows? But I didn't have the patience to have her feel safe, all those things that I know now. Anyway, she bucked really hard, and being bareback and not the best rider, of course we all try, but not the best, I went flying off and I broke my pelvis in 3 spots. And got to the house, got help, eventually, but it really shook me up as a horse person. I'd never been seriously injured on any of my horses. And my hard horses, you could ride bareback everywhere and do stuff, and you just had that, like, you're 14 years old and you can do everything, no fear at all, really, on my own horses. This is the first time I ever got hurt. And then working through that injury, I'm fine now, but working through that injury, being self-employed, you just kept working, on your crutches and just did it. There was no time off, and so much shame. Like, oh, I can't believe I didn't listen to the horse. I really messed up on understanding this new way of being around horses. I was never mean or horrible, but I certainly was following, it took a while to get from, well, he's got to respect me, which I never felt comfortable with. Like, some of us just knew that wasn't the right path. So then we just kind of like nothing, and the horse had no direction and no reason to feel safe around us because we didn't. But long story short, some new horses. I have 3 Morgans that came from the range in Montana. So not handled a lot, not mishandled necessarily, but not handled a lot. And one came 2 yearlings and then a 3-year-old. And the 3-year-old was really defensive around her back end and very fearful of people, and took a long time for her to come around, where the patients came in. And so when she did, it was really gratifying. But even until just very recently, I carry this fear of the old injury of the other horse, and I project it onto the new horse who hasn't done anything since we've been connected and more in tune, and she realizes I'm not going to hurt her. Like, she hasn't done anything to make me think she's going to hurt me. And if she did move defensively, I know enough to get out of the way and let her have her space and slow down, go back. I know that now. But in the meanwhile, when I'm with her, I'm still like that. And so my good trainer who helps me, named Tiffany Stauffer, who I did a podcast with, she said, you're projecting all that onto the horse, and she has no idea why. She has no understanding of what that is coming from. She's like, why are you afraid of me? If you're afraid, maybe I should be afraid. What are we afraid of?
Yeah.
So I think it would take me a lot. I'm still working through it, but to have 4 days to, like, not say I'm fine, to be honest and say, I'm a little scared of you. How are we going to work through that?
Yeah.
Wow. To have that guidance, Chris, boy, I mean, how do we get in touch with where we can learn that from you? Because that would be phenomenal.
I really enjoyed listening to you speak there, Barbara. You spoke so well about what so many people go through, and particularly when you brought up shame. I thought, oh, thank you for going there and having that bravery to speak about your own journey in that way. And I just feel, what I feel right off is just how we're all in this together. We are all in this together at all levels, whether you're a beginner or whether you are a horse professional with 50 years experience. We're all in this together. For whatever we're doing with a horse, there's something within our hearts that is drawing us there. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody I've met who has been drawn to horses and said, yes, I'm drawn to having this experience that will challenge me mentally, emotionally, and physically, and I could possibly get physically hurt in really bad ways, and will also challenge me financially very, very much, as well as time-wise, and have all of my inner fears come out, both mental and emotional and physical.
Oh, my.
I've not met one person who said that, but that is what we get. And we're all in this together, and we're all going to deal with it in ways where we dive head first into it, in ways we shouldn't, run away from it in ways we probably shouldn't, ignore it in ways we shouldn't, be tremendously hard on ourselves in ways we probably shouldn't, that are healthy, and also be tremendously hard on the horse in ways that aren't healthy either. So it's going to bring up all our stuff, like in any other relationship, very, very much. And the self-preservation instinct, how we're wired for our own safety, is to remember the things that hurt us in all of these ways. And then all the situation has to do is mirror that in some way. And this self-preservation instinct of ours is going to very innocently start to prepare us. We're going to go into that sympathetic nervous system of fight or flight in preparation for it. And our bodies will betray us. We might be telling the horse, easy now, it's okay, easy, while we're staring them in the eye, not blinking, with our shoulders squared up and our
Oh,
arms all
yes.
tight, where we look like we're 2 inches taller for some reason. We're so tight in our body. Then all of a sudden, a leaf has to drop 10 feet from us, and we jump.
Yeah, yeah.
And we
No,
jump.
there's a transformation. You're exactly right about the whole how our bodies are our brain is telling us one thing or trying to tell the horse one thing and the body's telling another. Because when Tiffany works with Rita, this mare, and Tiffany, who is just so in tune and so good with horses, the mare goes, "Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes, yes, you can pick up all four of my feet. Yes, we'll work with the farrier. Yes, everything is okay." Just like there's a transformation. And as an animal actor trainer, I see the same thing with dogs because I can go to set and work with someone's dog and it might be nicely trained and having a lot of fun, but the owner brings so much anxiety because, oh, my dog's going to have to perform and I'm nervous and da, da. It's like, okay, I'm going to work with Trigger here and I need you to go over there. you know
yeah,
and take a deep breath, and I do this. I mean, I know what's going on with the dog and the owner, and the dog is fine, everything's great, but recognizing it in myself is really hard, because it's like Tiffany can do the same thing for the horse that I can do for somebody else's dog, because we're coming at it from a completely different place, and she's completely honest about who she is at the moment, and the horse goes, great. Same thing with the dog and me. I know he's going to be great. We're going to have fun game. And if he doesn't like the game, we're not going to play. No harm done. So,
yeah,
but why can't, so that, that's why you almost get, like you said, the shame comes on, like, why can't I transfer that? Why can't a person transfer that? And I don't mean to like ask all these questions about me personally, because now it feels like I don't want to talk too much about me. This is about what you offer. But I feel like I wish we could had hours, and we don't. And maybe we'll have to do another podcast because Chris, you're just like really hitting it home for me, and I'm sure so many of my listeners.
Oh, thanks, Barbara. And yeah, there's a reason I feel it as well, as far as this is a topic for sure that feels like it could use a lot of words to get to something that can be pretty complex and pretty hard, maybe the hardest thing to go through as a horse person, because we feel love for these horses. We feel love for these horses, and we can also develop a fear of them at the same time. And that can create so much chaos inside of us that what we love is also what's scaring us.
Yeah,
And I find
that is
right?
so profound. Yeah, yeah.
And there's a reason why I feel like the hardest horses are the ones closest to us. The hardest horses are our own, because we're invested emotionally in them in ways that we can't help but very much care about the relationship. And we can't help but have somewhat of a story attached about the relationship and what we'd like it to be and where we'd like it to go.
Mm-hmm.
To be in the moment, to be truly in the moment, as we all talk about, means that you're not attached to any sort of future at all. And so when we're in relationship, we can't help it. We get attached to a future. We want it to go a certain way or something. And so,
Sure.
and we want to do right by the horse. And so I find that when a fear develops, I have to embrace it. I have to honor it. There's opportunity there somehow. I cannot deny it. And I have to really work on my own personal intuition. It's one of the hardest things, I think, to see the way clearly for yourself. It's why so many of us go to helpers. And when your friend comes over and helps with your horse, it's probably because she's not as attached to the future. She can be in that moment. She's probably been around a lot of horses and been in certain situations before. There were things in my life. I remember when I first rode a bolting horse.
Oh.
When a horse bolted me for the first time, a true bolting, I thought I might have been ruined with horses forever for riding. It was one of the scariest things that I'd ever had. And it happened again later that year and a short time afterward. And I thought, oh my God, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? I'd probably worked with 800, 1,000 horses, maybe more by that time, like intimately, like really intimately with those horses. And I'm like, but what am I missing? I didn't see these two bolts coming. And it was the most uncomfortable thing. But when I finally just let go, took a breath, slowed down, found help in the ways I needed to, listened to my intuition, because intuition will sometimes say, this is happening because you're supposed to be going down a different road. And sometimes intuition will say, this is happening and you need to embrace it and keep walking forward with it. And we can't know what that answer is going to be. And it's different for each of us. Nobody will know our journeys better than us until we're able to just really get connected to our intuition and then trust it. And like we talked
Trust
earlier,
it.
to trust
Yeah.
life, to trust that it happened, to not wish that it didn't happen. Because at that moment, then all of a sudden, every door becomes clear. What's in front of you becomes clear. And then so stepping forward into it, if you're finding help, as well as going back to where you do feel comfortable again, even if that's looking at the horse from the other side of the fence. There's a fairness to life that the more you work through something, the more that you are taken through it, the more you learn that challenge, the more you understand it. And then the more you understand it, you see it from two angles. You see it from a way before it ever happens, so that you can go a different way. Before something happens, you can guide it a different way. But then you also understand it so that if it does happen, you know what to do. That's where true confidence comes from with horses, is that you know what to do so that something doesn't happen. But then you also know what to do if something should happen. That's when I find that people can take the deepest breaths around their horses and work through what they are going through as far as that challenge. And there's no end to how many baby steps we can break things down into. And what we really have to let go of is that getting through it is the big reward, is the big joy, is the big place we're trying to get to. We have to go back to just standing and sitting and moving a tiny bit through your fear with the horse together in that moment, to where you both breathe, you both look at each other, you both connect, you both become two halves of a whole wanting the same thing. And that's the end in itself, right then, right there, with no place you got to get to. Let the future come to you. Let the future come to you. And you'll find that these things that have happened with our horses, they bring us closer together. They bring us closer together. And where that leads to, though, who knows? Who knows? Sometimes the most courageous thing is saying, maybe this horse would be safer in somebody else's care. That is just as courageous as saying, I think me and this horse have to work through this together.
Right.
And so long as the underlying theme is that the horse's care will always stay the same or get better, then I find it's like any other relationship out there in the world. We get together with somebody and we think, oh, this could be forever. But sometimes it's just for a little while. And as long as, like I said, as long as we have everybody's best interests at heart, beyond anything we hope to accomplish in our relationships, then I find it can always go to a place that brings us higher, always, for us and the horse.
Well, people and animals, especially animals because of their shorter lifespans, come into our life for a season. They're there for seasons. People and animals are there for seasons, and they come and they go. And the best thing from those seasons, even if you're sad that, say, you lose your dog, you lose your horse, whatever, they were there for that season, and you learned something. You learned something. You grew from it. That's the best way to look. Even painful things, they are seasons, and you learn. So I learned from that horse, and I learned that I had to start from scratch and really listen and understand what it meant to be quiet and peaceful.
Wow.
And with my other horses, I have 7 horses. The other 6, I have no angst about at all. And they know it. And we're like, cool. Even the youngsters who are 3-year-olds now, it's like, great, I'm with you. Rita's here for a reason. This is she's 5 now. I'm learning something. I'm learning something from Rita. And I just want to learn more. And the minute I get around her and I say to myself, it is what it is, and I'm not going to be afraid of you. You're doing nothing, to like consciously think about that, the more she goes like, well, what took you so long? I'm just standing here, I mean, and then when we go for a walk, and if she goes up, I just go quieter, go quieter. It's like with a child. The child gets amped up and upset and angry and scared, whatever the child is feeling, because every action is a sign of emotion. Every movement is emotion. If you get bigger and louder and yell at the child or scare them or like just fall apart, like you don't stay regulated for the child, everything is going to fall apart, right? But if you can go to that place of calmness, quietness, I mean, you try a 2-year-old, which is not much different than a 15-year-old when you look at what they're trying to express. They need to be independent, but they're still hanging on. Boy, that patience, that quietness, that I'm not going to let my, reaction overshadow what they're feeling at the moment. I need to be present for them. And that's hard. I mean, I have 4 sons and grandchildren and, and we've worked with children, young women that have come and stayed with us that have had terrible trauma and adverse childhood, experiences. The same thing with horses. Instead of going, what's wrong with you? When you look at the horse, you can say what happened to you, but also turn that back on yourself. Instead of saying, what's wrong with me? Why am I afraid? Why am I a problem? You can go like, okay, this is what happened. And now I can let it go, or I can work through it, or I learned something. And it seems to me that things happen to you and the horses helped you learn something. And now you're turning that around and helping others, which is such a great thing on their journeys to get to a place of being present and being thoughtful and being there. I mean, how wonderful is that, Chris? We're grateful.
Yeah, it never ends as far as this journey of learning and all of that. And I've learned to be very kind and gentle with myself. I used to feel, if we looked at 6 years ago or so, I'd say, I'd feel like, okay, I really feel very in tune with horses and people and this work and the clinics and everything else. And then I would go through my own learning phase. Something would happen and but it always had the same sort of feel to it. It always felt like rushing. It always felt like I was rushing. I was pushing. And then I'd be driving away from the person and their horse that I was visiting that day, or it'd be the end of the day of the clinic, and I'd be like, that didn't feel too good. That didn't feel, and it would be very uncomfortable in me because I felt like I had to be this steady, strong, always connected, always in the flow. And it came from a very innocent place. It came from a very innocent place of wanting to be good for everybody and good for all horses. But it was also attached to an insecure place, about finding something in self-worth a long time ago in this work with horses. Finding something that, when you find something that people seem to go, hey, you're good at that. I think it's impossible not to attach some self-worth and self-meaning to that. And you want to keep that. You want to feel like you're enough. You want to feel like you're light. You want to, at the end of the day, as deep as it goes, you want to feel like you're loved. And it's that part of us that's looking for our wholeness outside of ourselves, love outside of ourselves, which we'll be running in circles doing that. And we'll be putting a lot of that on the horses in not healthy ways, trying to have them live and do and be in a certain way that fills in for us and makes us feel good and feels like we're, good with horses and good in life in all ways. And then when they're not doing it, then we'll get, pretty frustrated with them pretty quickly. We'll blame them. So that inner work, it's really the greatest work. And I believe it is the biggest work as far as having an effect on our horses and how we are around them, how we care for them and how we work with them, is our own inner work towards finding our own wholeness within, our own love within, our love for ourselves. Being able to feel,
like you said,
that
love and connection, for sure. What you said.
Love and connection for ourselves from within, that great wellspring of love and connection within, where we feel, I am loved, I am safe, and I am never alone. You have an individual feel that, and then have them walk up to a horse. Oh, we're looking at a being of, 60 million years or so of evolution, where energy and presence and body language is their number one way of reading a being as the being's walking up to them. And now we're talking about a universal language that transcends species here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason we don't ride, rhinoceroses. There's a reason the horse, the dog, the cat, the domestic animals choose. If they choose, at least it seems they can. So yes, absolutely. And I think it does go back. And I think it's in our DNA to want to be with animals and to be with nature. I think it's very human. I think we all have, whether we say we like animals or not, I think there's an animal shaped hole in all of us in some level, because given the opportunity, how could someone not love a cat? Cats are okay, we could go on and on. Cats, chickens, cattle, all of it, dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole life is animals. It's animal centric. How lucky and blessed I am to have that as my living, to train animal actors, to, be an animal photographer, to do this, talk to amazing people like you. So everyone should just go get a cat or a dog, or go connect, go get out their horse, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's why we have therapy animals, because we all feel good around them, so.
Yeah.
My
They
husband,
really,
my husband was just talking. I'm sorry, Chris. My husband was just talking the other day that we were talking about somebody who was at the end of life and how they were in hospice, and it was sad. And we were talking about someone, and he said, "Well, if I'm ever faced with that, where I have time, where I'm dying slowly," he said, "just surround me with cats. Let me just have all my cats.
absolutely.
Because we have a lot of cats, and he just like that gives him so much comfort. And it's like, just whatever you need to do, make sure that I have 7, 8, 10, however many cats want to sit with me, there." That's what I love all my family, but you make sure there's cats, and I think that's great.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. I think animals embody a loving presence for the wholeness of the moment, the wholeness of life in the moment. There's many differences between us with animals. The bodies are certainly different. And as much as we can learn about those differences, the better off we are. The minds are different in their capability and all of that, but I don't see that as any different as how humans are different mind to
mm-hmm.
mind. Humans are different in their mental capability as well.
Right,
And
right,
the word is only different, but it doesn't mean better or worse. And that's where I think
exactly.
a lot of us humans, are mistaken, is we tend to feel like we're above animals in some way. And I find that where we talk about those great things that unify us, like life and death, and when the animals that I've been around that have passed on, they have a great acceptance of it. They seem to have a great knowing that it's just a transition,
Mm-hmm.
that nothing's wrong, nothing's bad, and yet, yes, it might be scary. The body is going to think it's scary, certainly enough. The body has reactions in trying to stay alive during those times. But that soulful part of animals we were talking about, that seems to be very much at peace with this journey, whether it's a year long or 10 years or 100. And no matter what's happened within the journey, they almost have this great, I don't want to say forgiveness of life, but a great knowing of life is a road of ups and downs and challenges, a lot of unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And so when humans are around animals during these, there's a reason why we go to them for hard times. Yeah, and certainly there's a reason why we go to them during times where people feel like they're close to passing. And they
Mm-hmm.
embody, even if we're not aware of it mentally, we feel something energetically, we feel something soulfully, where the animal's embodying the feeling of it's okay, it's going to be all right,
Mm-hmm.
and that's often just enough. Doesn't have to be explained beyond that.
No, that's wonderful. Well, as I said, we could just talk a long time. There's so much that
Yeah.
we want to learn, that you can share with us. But we're to the last part of the show where we talk about the questions.
Oh
We
yes.
Tim Ferriss has a book called Tribe of Mentors, and he has these 20 questions that he asked his people in the book and his show, and we're stealing totally the idea. So we sent 20 of the questions that Tim Ferriss asked people, and had you pick out 5 of them, and they're just a great way to wrap up the show and let people get to know you on another level. And then the last thing we'll do is, of course, talk about how people can get in touch with you,
Sure.
and things like that. All right. So the first question that you picked was, what is the most valuable thing that you put your time into that has changed the course of your life?
Yes, I remember picking that one. I was like, oh, I already know my answer for that. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. It's the wholeness within. The wholeness within. I believe a lot of our journey in this world is to experience our life as whole, ourselves as whole, from the inside out, where we have this great, I call it the wellspring of love from within, the never-ending wellspring of love from within. And what comes right along with that is just a feeling of safety. And as we go on our journey, and a feeling of never, ever being alone. And the reason why that has been the most important thing for me is because if the more it's like a practice. As far as the physical part of this world, everything is a practice. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care how many times I've done a hindquarter yield with a horse. I still feel like I'm practicing it, even though I've probably done it 20,000 times.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I'm still missing them all the time. Like, oh, could have moved this way a little bit more, could have asked a little less or a little more, all these different
Mm-hmm.
things. So it's a constant practice physically in this world. But if I can find that feeling within me that I just spoke about as I go to be around a horse, care for a horse, or work with a horse, wherever it goes, I find is just beautiful right from the start. Yeah, that's made a big difference for me.
Well, that's great. I understand. What inspires and motivates you to do what you do, and what is your true purpose in the world?
You spoke earlier about those things that are kind of born into us, when we come into this world. And I have a very strong drawing to be out there with horses and with people, and to be fostering opportunity for seeing and understanding and connection between the two of them. And when I'm out there with people and horses, there's an evenness to it. I feel like we're all there evenly together. I do not feel like I'm leading. I feel like we're all leading together and we're all learning together. And I'm simply there for safety and organization and to offer guidance when needed based on the fact of what's come before. All the horses, all the people, all the different adventures and journeys that I've been on and all of that I can maybe offer assistance if asked. But there's something that I feel during that time when working with people and horses that fills me up just as great as anything that they might be getting filled up with as well, work that they're doing. And I can tell I can't get away from that. It feels like it's born into me. Yeah.
Oh, I understand. Huh.
Yeah.
All right. What is your relationship with fear?
Oh, it's a guide. It's a locator. It's not a bad thing. Fear gets such a bad rap. It's so innocent. Even the fears that we've kind of made up mentally in our heads, it's still showing us that we're capable of doing that. So it's kind of highlighting all these areas that are getting in the way of us just being able to take those deep breaths and relax and look at ourselves and, like I said, be gentle and understanding of ourselves. Realize that this is a practice. There's no perfection to life, and that we don't have to compare ourselves to anybody else or to who we think we should be or anything else, and that our thinking can sometimes be our own worst enemy. This is what fear shows us. It's like a little beacon light. It's like a little lighthouse. It just makes me aware of something that is getting in the way of myself, whether that be my own mind, or whether that be something real, whether that be an inner sense that, yes, Chris, there is a bunch of turkeys in the grass over there and they're about to jump up. Oh, thank you, fear. Thank you, awareness right there. I think I'll stop the horse, get down, and we'll maybe walk towards them slowly, or maybe even turn around and not disturb them. I have to see what my intuition says.
Yeah, there's a reason we run from tigers, or don't want to mess with tigers.
Exactly.
Yeah. What did you want to be as a child, and how close did you get to that dream?
Oh, I forgot I picked that one.
I'm very curious because you didn't know horses until later, so,
Exactly. Oh, when I picked these, I felt like I didn't pick them because I already had the answer. They're the ones that I felt that I was drawn to and all of that. But this one, I feel like I got nothing right off. Yeah, let's see where this goes. I would say, as I had a child, there's two passions in my life, two passions that I can't get away from, and they are tied to my heart very closely. And one is being around and working with horses and people, and the other one is writing. Writing stories, nonfiction, poetry, even writing, social media. It's a great outlet for me to speak my heart in social media. So I remember when I was young, sitting on the bed. I don't know how old I was, but I was sitting on the bed with my mom, and she didn't quite know what I was talking about. She was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I don't know, Mom. I feel I have to be out there doing something with people, and then I have to tell about it."
I have to do something and tell about
what?
it.
This 8-year-old kid is talking. She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have to be out there And I was an animal lover, big time animal lover. Everybody knew that. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be out there doing something, Mom. And then I got to tell about it. She was like, huh? This would have been like in the early 80s or whatever. And I don't know if she was thinking, okay, he's just a kid, or I don't know. We've never talked about this or whatever. I don't know if she'd
Mm-hmm.
even remember it. But what I feel in my heart, what was there was the feeling of I'm supposed to be out there, just helping horses, helping people and horses as best I can. And then the telling about it is the writing about it, because that is just as strong in me as to sit down afterward and sort of come to peace with it through writing, and also help myself to understand it as far as the learnings that I can have from it, not
Mm-hmm.
only about myself, but all of life. And so I think that's what I would answer for that one.
That's a good answer. Good
Yeah.
answer. And then the last one, do you have a favorite animal companion?
Oh, I know why I picked this one. I picked this one because I said I'm going to get to talk about Rocky and Matea.
We'd
So
like that,
Rocky,
yes.
yeah, Rocky, I have a hard time saying used to be or was, but
Mm-hmm.
Rocky was a horse that I was very connected to. He passed away this past late March. He was 21 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
Matea, a dog I was very connected to,
Mm-hmm.
passed away at 13 years old a year ago. And those were my deepest, most connected animal companions so far in this world. And not to judge depth, not to compare, when I say deepest, but that's just and there's a horse in my life now named Tally, and I feel the same sort of thing that I felt with Rocky, that same sort of
Mm.
connection. And it will be different, but also I believe it will feel the same in many ways. But not to speak about this one was deeper or deeper or more deeper in that way. I think there's just
Mm-hmm.
these different relationships we
Different.
have with animals that take us pretty far. And Matea felt like she was walking beside me through it all, experiencing it all
Mm-hmm.
with me. Like, I don't know, Chris, what's this? I don't know. Let's go. Matea felt like my adventure buddy, tied right to my hip through anything. She wouldn't let me go through anything alone, no matter what it was. And probably the deepest journeys we experienced together were what I went through emotionally in the last 13
Mm-hmm.
years, and she would not let me go through that alone. Rocky, I always describe Rocky, to me, he felt like he had one hoof in this world and one hoof in the other. He was right there with me through all these journeys, but boy, was there a big part of him that felt like he understood it all and knew where it was all going and knew why things were happening. And just, he felt like my greatest teacher. At the same time, he was my greatest friend. He
Mm-hmm.
felt
I
like while I
understand.
was teaching him, I knew him since he was a foal, and he went through so many incarnations of me in 21 years. So many times where I was like, "Ooh, Rocky, I learned this new thing. Let's try it." Okay, Chris. All right.
So forgiving. Yeah.
So forgiving, and so many incarnations of me emotionally as well. Like I'm so tied to those guys that whatever I went through in life, personally, I couldn't help but have that be present. And when I was working and doing things with them, and
Mm-hmm.
no matter how many changes I went through there as well, he was always right there with me, and deeper for it, and deeper for it. And the work that we did when whether it was alone, him and I, or whether it was out there at clinics, or whether it was at demonstrations or expos or horse shows or performances or whatever, Rock came from that deep inner place in all of that that's beyond mind and body, in his presence and in his choice to be there and to follow wherever it may lead, even if he did not know where I was leading or what was around that next corner. Even if I didn't know, he still
Mm-hmm.
trusted in it. To come full circle here, to come full circle for this hour that we've been here, Barbara. Rocky trusted life with me. Rocky
Yes.
trusted life with me, and that was in every one of his steps that he took with me.
Yes, I understand and I agree. All horse people and dog people, certainly anyone who's loved an animal can relate to what you're saying and
Mm-hmm.
understand it. I hadn't ridden for 4 years after I lost my hard horse because I had young horses, or our rescue mares weren't rideable. So they're just here and we love them. And then recently someone gave me the opportunity to pick up this gelding, this 18-year-old Morgan gelding, who is rideable. And we're building our relationship now. I've only had him a few months. But I finally rode him around the farm bareback because this saddle wasn't going to be the right fit. And I thought, I'll just ride you bareback. And that was a trust building for both of us because, I didn't want to get hurt, be scared. So that was all fine. And I wrote about it on Facebook. I said, I finally rode, Teddy. He's such a lovely boy. And he was very giving, very understanding. And I mentioned how I hadn't ridden since I lost my hard horse. And a friend wrote, your hard horse was right there with you.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, probably. I feel that was possible. He was just right there with me. This is going to be okay. You can love this horse like you loved me. Permission. It was really a wonderful thing that person said, because I feel they never really go away. When someone you love, a human being, dies, do they really go away? No. I mean, if you're open, they're with you. As long as you're open, they're with you. They don't go away. It's eternal. Yeah. And I feel our animal souls can be that way too. And it was just so gratifying to visualize that, Finn, this Morgan gelding, was very similar to what Teddy is now, was with me, and that really touched my heart. So Rocky's with you.
Yeah.
You knew that.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Barbara.
That's a good place to I don't feel like crying too, because now I feel sad for you and Rocky. I get it so deeply. Yeah. And your dog,
beautiful sadness.
Yeah, of course, your dog sadness. Too.
So. Thanks for that too. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to, of course, list everything, all the links you gave us and things in the show notes, but how do people find you if they want to work with you? Certainly your books are online. We can have links to those. I recommend everyone reading them. Just reading the synopsis on the description, I was like, oh, because we just arranged this, so I haven't got your book yet, but I'm going to get your books because I'm like, I want to know what happened, why at 26, and then how did you get there, and all those things you talk about in your books. It should be a movie, as far as I'm concerned. Somebody better pick it up. But what's the best way to start? I found you on Facebook and follow you there, certainly. But what's the best way for people to, if they want to reach out and learn more about you?
The best way would be the website, probably, which is chrislombard.com. And that has links on there to both the Instagram and Facebook pages, which I do a lot of writing because, like I said, I love it. I love writing about horses and all the adventures we all take with them. So I do a lot of social media writing. And then the books, they're available if you just kind of Google them out there. There's Land of the Horses, which is about the 2 years that I spent out west. And then there is The Horses in Our Stars, which is more about the journey within, more about the soulful, heartfelt journey and the adventures there that we have with horses.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, wow. I want to go hug my horses right now. I just want to go out there and talk to them and go, I'm going to be present and I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to be still and just not look at my phone, not even bring it out there, just. Right. That's how talking to you has made me feel today. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Chris, for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate you sharing a really important message in this changing world of horses.
Oh, Barbara, I just had a blast here, and I can't thank you enough for creating this place where people can go and talk and also feel heard and seen and known just by listening to this podcast and everything, the people that you've had on and what they're sharing. And like we talked earlier, I love listening to podcasts while I'm driving and while I'm working around the house and all of that. And putting on a podcast such as yours and everything, I'm going to feel like, all right, I can really understand what they're talking about right now. I really feel like I'm a part of something. So you're creating a place of community here through this, and that's very important.
Well, thank you. That was my goal. I wanted to just talk to people that can spread the word because it's happening in the dog world. It's getting better for dogs all the time. The horses, it's a little slower catching on. And the more we can get it out there that this is possible, that it doesn't have to be the way it was. It's possible. And there's no shame in what happened before. Move forward. You might not have always had the best methods, but you're different now, and that's going to be better for your horse. And we all, as horse people, feel that. So move on, move with them, go with them. It's wonderful.
Agreed.
Thank you again, Chris.
Thank you so much, Barbara.